Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of the life skills session here on YouTube Live as part of our academy. Life skills are those skills that you all need to survive in life as well as to thrive in life, to be the very best that you can. But these are skills that nobody teaches you in school. But this is something super important. That's why we've actually put together a whole series of programs for you on the top life skills that you need to know to be the very best that you can. Today's session, the second session of this life skill series, is on public speaking, the top tips of professional speakers. Welcome to everybody who is joining. I hope you will find this session useful as well, because we're going to talk about one of those skills that all of us need, which is how to be a professional speaker. Good afternoon to everybody. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope also that you're going to enjoy this and your day will become better because you will learn something absolutely new, something brand new that you may not have known about before. That's what we are about to do here. Teach you something that enlightens you, that inspires you, and that encourages you to try out something new. That's what we're going to do today. Public speaking is a topic that's of great interest to most people because most of us are public speakers, or like I like to say, all of us are actually public speakers. And why do I say that? Well, it's true. All of us are doing public speaking at every single point in our lives, right? Every single day we're doing public speaking. When we are with our families, we may not be doing public speaking. When we are with our friends, one-to-one, we may not be doing public speaking. But if I'm going to present a report on a book, then it's public speaking. If I have to stand up in front of the school assembly and talk to people, that's public speaking as well. If I have to participate in a debate or a quiz, that's public speaking. When I go for an interview and I present myself, that's public speaking too. So this is what is meant by public speaking. All of these different opportunities are all public speaking opportunities. All of us have to do that, whether we are children, whether we are adults, whether we are teachers, whether we are students, we are professionals, whatever it is, we have to be public speakers, and that's super important. And it is a skill. We don't say, do you have public speaking talent? We say, do you have public speaking skill? Is this something that you want to develop? Because it is something that can be learned. None of us are born with public speaking skills. Skills means this is something that you need to learn and you need to practice and you need to develop. That's what a public speaking skill is. And that's what we're going to do today. Right. Most of us, in fact, even though we have to speak in public, what happens is that we are kind of scared about speaking in public. And research shows all across the world, different countries, different context. The numbers may vary a little bit, but research actually shows that 70% of people at any point of time are scared of public speaking. In fact, there's a very famous joke which says that, I'd rather be the person lying in the coffin than be the person giving a speech at a funeral. That's how scared people are of public speaking. 70%, that's a large number, isn't it? It could actually even be larger. Maybe 75-80% of us are scared of public speaking. Whenever we think of public speaking, it fills us with all kinds of dread and anxiety and fear. And we're wondering, oh my God, is the audience going to hate me? Am I going to miss my cue? Am I going to forget my lines? What if I start stumbling? What if my accent isn't good enough? What if my presentation doesn't work? What if the lights go off? All these kinds of doomsday horror scenarios tend to play in my mind. And we have all these fears about public speaking. And this is what holds most of us back from grabbing the opportunities that are coming our way. And it's really important to grab these public speaking opportunities because these are the opportunities which get you noticed, which get you to move forward, which gets people to sit up and say, oh, yeah, okay, she's an interesting person. She has these ideas that she likes sharing with people. Maybe we should consider her for school captain or, president of the student body, or let's give her a job. Let's give her a place in our college. Public speaking is what gets you noticed. It's one of the most essential skills, life skills that any of us can develop. And hence, here I am presenting to you 10 top tips that's going to make public speaking absolutely simple, relaxing, and fun. Not the three words that most of us associate with public speaking, but we can make public speaking simple, relaxing, and fun. And there are some practical tips and techniques that's going to show you how exactly we do that. My name is Shraboni, and I teach public speaking, communication courses, as well as personal excellence courses on an academy. I also have a career as a coach and a consultant where I work with teams, individuals, and organizations to enable them to be the best that they can by working on their processes, working on their people, and doing lots and lots of training as well. I have a lot of experience in this area, so I hope you will ask me questions and you will make sure that you get the best out of this session. So welcome once again, and let's get cracking with the 10 top tips of public speakers, which if you learn will make sure that the audience absolutely loves you and you're a huge success. And these are not top tips that you can find in any book or any portal or Google or anywhere, because these are the top tips that are coming from my own experience, and these are top tips that I've put together especially for you today. So here we go with top tips, 10 top tips for public speaking, right? Are you all ready? Drum roll. Yes? Okay, we're going to do a countdown today, which means I'm going to start with tip number 10 and then work my way down to tip number 1 right at the end, right? That's what we're going to be doing today. So here we are, all set for it. Let's get cracking. And the first thing that I say is, we focus too much on what we're going to say in public speaking. But it's really not about what I'm going to say. It's more about something different. Now, you think about it. Think in your mind, why am I saying that public speaking is not about what I say? I thought public speaking was all about what I say. Not quite. And the difference is quite stark, because if you start thinking about what makes a speaker interesting, why are you watching this video today? Why are you going to spend 1 hour of your time watching this video? Well, you will know it's not simply because of what I'm going to say, but how I'm going to say it, right? How I'm going to say it, that's actually very important as well. And the how could be all kinds of things, and the how will be part of my body language, the way I'm speaking, whether I have a smile on my face, whether I'm moving my hands, whether I'm moving my head, what am I doing? Am I being active? Am I engaging with you? When you stand up on stage, you might have a prepared speech, and you go out and you just read it without changing your voice, without trying to make it interesting, without moving around the stage, without engaging with your audience. Your speech is very likely going to be a flop. Another person has the same speech, but they make it interesting. How do they make it interesting? They ask questions. They pause, like I'm doing right now. They smile. They look confident. They move about on the stage. They engage with the audience. They make eye contact with the audience. They use powerful body language. And powerful body language means they show confidence through their bodies. How do they do that? Well, they may actually have open hand gestures. They may stand with a lot of confidence. They speak with a loud voice. They make sure that their point gets across. That's what makes a speaker interesting. Not simply the content of what they say, but how they say it. So the content is important, sure, but it's secondary to how you say it. You can start preparing with your content. You might think in your head, okay, I have to make a speech on the environment, on the impact of plastics on our environment. And these are the points that I'm going to present. So you can prepare like that. But what's going to happen is, after you've made your preparation, you just can't go ahead and just state your points. You have to make it interesting for your viewers. If you're on YouTube, like I am right now, or if you're standing up on stage, or for your classmates and your teacher, if you're making a presentation in front of your class. If you do all of that, you have to make sure it's interesting. How do you do that? Through your body language, through your voice, through your pauses, through your jokes, through your stories. You do all of these to make your points get across to people. So my first top tip number 10, is how you say it can make or break your presentation. So concentrate not simply on what you have to say, but also think about how you're going to say it. And that's going to make a huge difference to how your presentation or your speech is accepted by people. That's going to make a huge difference, right? I hope that's clear to everybody. There is a whole lot of things that you can do to do that. And that's what I'm going to concentrate on. Let me just talk about body language here for a second. Body language, always make sure it's open body language. Look at the way I'm speaking right now. I'm not sitting like this, and my head is not down, right? I hope you can all see my camera. I'm not sitting like this. My head is not down. My mouth is not closed like this. Not a serious face. It's open, which means my arms are like this. My hands are like this. I'm smiling. I'm moving forward to the camera. It's showing me that showing you that I'm receptive, I'm engaged, I'm curious, and I want to listen to you as well. Always have open body language, which means very simply, have your palms and your hands open like this. Never have your palms closed or like this or with your fingers out. Those are called closed body language, aggressive styles. Or have your arms like this right at the side. That's not very good, okay? Open, open, open. And the openness conveys to your audience that you're confident. Yeah, and you will also be able to be convincing to your audience. That's really, really very important, okay? So that's tip number 10. And there is a whole lot that we can talk about body language. Catch up on my other sessions which I've had done for Unacademy on the Educator app on the website. You'll be able to catch up presentations on body language for public speaking as well. There's a whole lot of tips there. If you're interested, catch up on that. But it's time for me now to move on to top tip number 9, right? And here I go with another question. Look at this question. Did you know that 50% of your audience leaves within the first 5 to 10 minutes of your presentation? Yes, that's absolutely true. 50% of your audience. That's a lot of people. If you're in front of a school assembly and there are 200 people there, 100 people are going to leave within the first 10 minutes of your presentation. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to walk out of the auditorium. They may not be allowed to, but they will leave mentally. They will check out mentally from this, which means that they're not going to be there with you. They might be thinking about their next class. They might be thinking about the wonderful game that they were playing, the high scores they got in the game last night. They might be thinking about their fight that they're having with their friend. They're thinking about all kinds of things, but they're not paying attention to you because human attention span is very, very short. And in fact, what happens is that you just have 30 seconds to grab attention. This is true. You have 30 seconds to 1 minute to grab the attention of your listeners. And if you're not able to do that, they're going to mentally check out, right? So this is where the secrets of the top presenters come in. They never start their presentation with a table of contents. They never start saying that this is what I'm going to cover today. Oh, no, 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 no. They always start their presentation with something really interesting. And when they start with something really interesting, they grab attention. They grab attention. And if you notice, the way that I started the presentation today, I did introduce myself first off. I didn't introduce public speaking first off. What I actually said is, all of us are public speakers, right? I made a provocative statement, and you might be wondering in your head at that point of time, oh no, I'm not a public speaker. No, I'm not. Oh, I'm not in the debate team. I got you thinking. And even if you disagree with my statement, that's fine. At least you're engaged, okay? So you have to grab attention if you're going to be a good public speaker. That's my top tip number 9. And how do you do it? Well, you use it by using what's called a hook. Now, if you've ever been fishing or you've seen people fishing, you know what they have to do? Well, they have to have a fishing rod, and they have to have the string, and at the end of it, they have a little hook. But in the hook, they put a bait. They put a worm or something tasty that attracts the fish. And because that tasty thing attracts the fish, they come and they swallow the hook, and that's how the fish gets caught. And this is what you have to do when you start your public speaking, your presentation. You have to put something tasty for your audience to come and swallow your hook, which is your presentation, for your audience to come and listen to you. Okay, that's what a hook is. And a hook can be many different things. It can be a statement like I made. I also made another statement which said 70% people are scared of public speaking. And I did all of this before I even started with the content for my presentation. So don't start on your content right away. First, present something to your audience that's interesting to them. And that's how you grab their attention. And there is lots of different kinds of hooks that you can start with. But TED, that Speakers Forum TED, and they compiled a list of the top hooks that their presenters use. And they found that most of their presenters, and if you are a watcher of TED like I am, I absolutely love TED Talks, and I keep watching them. And I've seen this myself as well. Most TED Talks start with a story. They start with a story. They talk about a personal story. And I could have started with a story today about the first time that I had a public speaking opportunity. And this is a true story, by the way. I went up on stage when I was in school, when I was in class 7. And I happened to come first in class that year. And I was asked to make a speech at the graduation ceremony. And that was a horrendous experience for me because I was so nervous. I was like, I've never done this before. Everybody's watching. The parents are there. The students are there. And how badly I failed. I really, really bombed at that presentation. I stood far away from the mic. I was very short as well. The mic was above me. Nobody could hear what I was saying. My voice was all dry. My mouth was all dry. I couldn't do any of the things that I'm teaching you now. I didn't know any of that. So I really bombed. And I could start with a story like that for a class on the top secrets of presenters. You can start with a story. Any point of time. Stories are absolutely wonderful. People love stories. This could be a personal story, which is always wonderful. Or it could be a story about somebody else. Or it could just be a fictional story taken from Google. That's absolutely fine. Start with a story if you can. Let's take that other example of you having to make a presentation on the impact of plastics on the environment. And you might start with a story of how you went on holiday 2 months ago, and you went to the seaside, and in the evening you and your parents were walking on the beach. And as you were walking on the beach, you saw a lot of packets of chips, empty packets of chips, plastic bottles lying around on the beach. And then you came across a truly horrendous sight where you saw a bird, a seagull in fact, which had got plastic wrapped all around it, and it was lying there on the beach dead. You tell a story like this and immediately your audience is listening to you. So no matter what your subject, you can start with a story. You can also start with a joke. So your story could be a funny story. Anything like that. Your joke could be any other kind of joke. But be careful, jokes are not always suitable because it depends on the situation where what kind of thing are you talking about, right? Most situations you can use a joke. If the subject is very serious, well, no, not a joke. But you can use other kinds of stories. You can use pictures. That's a wonderful hook. If you, rather than tell a story about the bird, or as you were telling the story about the bird which was wrapped in plastic, you could have an image of a bird lying dead on the seaside, wrapped in plastic, right? Wrapped in oil maybe, if there's an oil spill or something, and you want to talk about the environment. You could do that. Put up that kind of a picture. Everybody is listening to you. They're hooked. They're listening to you. They're wondering, okay, so what's going to happen next? That's the wonderful thing about a story because everybody is wondering what's going to happen next. Another thing that most TED speakers use is they talk about a belief statement. And they say something like, I believe, right? And it could be something quite silly, but it could also be something quite profound. An example of a silly belief statement is, I believe that socks are more important than food. Like, mind is blown. How can somebody say socks are more important than food? But the speaker just stood up there and said, I believe that socks are more important than food. And why do I say that? Well, a number of homeless people were interviewed in New York City. And one of the homeless people said, you know what, I can get lots of free food around if I go to the shelters, if I go to the temples and the churches. Lots of people are giving free food, especially around the holidays. But if I don't have a really thick pair of socks, then I can't sleep at night because my feet get really cold and I sleep outside in the open. I don't have a home. So socks for me are more important than food. Now you start with a belief statement or a provocative statement. The socks one was also a little bit of a provocative statement. A provocative statement here means something that sounds really way out there, but it's something that gets your audience thinking as well, right? Socks are more important than food. Oh my God, how could that be true? Or something like, coronavirus has really been a blessing for everybody in this world. Your audience is shocked. Your audience is absolutely shocked. They may not agree with you, they might disagree with you, but they're listening to you. And that's what you want in terms of a hook, to get your audience to listen to you, okay? So there are different ways, and one hook that I use a lot, that I use today as well, is a question. And I ask a lot of questions, and I say, okay, so how many of you think how many people do you think are scared of public speaking? Rather than presenting that 70%, I could have asked you that question. How many people do you think in 100 are scared of public speaking? And I can ask that question. And the beauty of asking a question is, if I start my presentation with a question, my audience is engaged, they're thinking about the answer, they're answering me. It gives me a little bit of a breather as well, to breathe, calm down myself, because at the beginning of the presentation, most of us are quite nervous. We breathe, we calm down, and we start engaging with the audience. Welcome to all of you who are joining in just now, who are watching the presentation just now. Today is the second in the life skills series, and we are talking about the top 10 secrets of professional public speakers, right? And we've already covered tip number 1, and here we are at tip number 2. Okay, so tip number 1 was that it doesn't matter as much what you say as how you say it. So the how you say it, the body language, the verbal skills, the the engagement with the audience, the smiling, all of that is really much more important than what you have to say. And the second tip is, never ever start your presentation with a table of contents by saying this is what I'm going to do, but always start your presentation with something a little bit interesting, a little bit of a tidbit, and that's going to be wonderful for your audience, and it's going to be wonderful for you as well, because you've got their attention. If there are any questions or any comments, feel free to write it in the chat box. I have it right open here in front of me, and I would love to answer your questions about public speaking, because this is one of the topics that a lot of people are interested in, but they don't know how to do. So I get asked a lot of questions on public speaking. Go ahead, put your questions in the chat box while I have a sip of water. There we go. Moving on, counting down to tip number 8. That's the third tip of today as we count down to tip number 1. Like I said, you introduce your presentation with a hook. You also have to have a really interesting way of introducing yourself. And most people, when they start a presentation or a public speaking opportunity, go up on stage and they say, hey there, my name is Rohini and I am from Bilaspur and I'm in class 10 and I'm in St. Lawrence School, right? Most people will say that. Do you agree or not? I'm sure you do. You heard countless presentations, countless speeches where people just stand up and the first thing that they do is to say, hey there, my name is Raj and I'm from Kolkata and I'm in this school and this is the class that I'm in. Oh my God, everybody does this. But it is utterly boring. It's utterly boring. Don't do it, right? Never start by introducing yourself, even if the moderator of the debate or the speech or, the public speaking, your teacher, whoever it is who's there says, please introduce yourself. Now, there is a way of introducing yourself that I want to explain to you. And I don't want you to have an introduction which is generic and boring, which is to tell your name and the place that you're from and your school. Don't do that. That's a generic and a boring introduction. But you do have to introduce yourself, right? So how should you do that? Any thoughts? Write into the chat box. But here we go with some of my tips on how you should introduce yourself. First off, don't even say my name is dash as the first sentence. Don't do that. That should only be the third or the fourth sentence. The first thing you do is to focus on your audience. And by that, I mean, first make a statement or a connection with your audience and say something like, hi, I see that there are a lot of people who are wearing jeans today. How did you guys decide that you're going to wear blue jeans to school today or to the debate or to the amphitheater today, right? This is what you see, and immediately your audience is listening to you. Today I'm going to talk to you about the way that all of us make decisions, especially the really small, unimportant decisions about things like what to wear, what to eat, what to do. There is a way that our brains process information and makes decisions every day. And today I'm going to talk to you about the way that our brain has made decisions. And by the end of this presentation, you will know why exactly you chose to wear blue jeans today. My name is Raj. I'm from Kolkata. I study in this school in class 10, and I'm here today to talk to you about decision making. And that's how you make an introduction, right? You make a connection with the audience. You make the whole thing about them. You're going to learn. And they're like, oh yeah, I want to know. I'm sure all of you want to know today. Why did I decide to wear what I'm wearing? Oh, I wish Raj was here to explain to us about decision making, right? You're also wanting to do this. You are hooked. Whenever you make an introduction, you focus on the audience. You talk to them. You say, hey, can you raise your hand if you're from the northern part of India? And 50% or maybe of the audience raises their hand. You say, okay, that's great. I see that 50% of you are from the north of India. So what kind of cities are you from? And everybody starts shouting out, oh, I'm from Delhi, I'm from Chandigarh, I'm from, Ahmedabad, I'm from this part, whatever. They start shouting out the names and you say, that's great to know. I lived in Delhi for a while, but right now I live in Bangalore and oh my God, do I miss the Delhi weather? My name is Shraboni. I live in Bangalore. Today I'm going to talk to you about whatever, public speaking, right? But you've already made a connection with the audience and you have already started to establish that you are somebody who's like them and they already start liking you because people like to know that somebody is like me, right? So this is very, very important. Focus on the audience. The second thing is focus on your strengths. And while you're doing that, it means that when you're introducing yourself, before you even give out your name, you say, I'm going to talk to you about decision-making skills. This is something that I've been studying for the last 2 years in college. And in my last semester, in fact, I had a major on decision-making and I did some research along with my friends and we met more than 500 people. We took their answers and we got to know what exactly it is, how exactly it is that human beings make decisions, especially things like what to wear, what to eat, what time to shower, all the trivial mundane decisions that people make in a day. Hi there, my name is so-and-so, right? So you've already established your credibility. Why should you be listening to me? Because I'm kind of an expert in this area, right? Say all of that before you even get to your name. And then, of course, keep it really short. If somebody says introduce yourself, say all of those kind of things. Do the little bit of the hook with your audience. Ask a question or make it interesting for your audience. And then introduce yourself. Just the name, why you're here, what you're going to do. That's it. That's it. They don't need to know your history. They don't need to know lots of irrelevant details about your family or what you love doing. Nothing. If it's irrelevant, if it's not interesting for the audience, cut it out. Cut it out. Keep it short. So, summarizing, top tip number 8 is never ever start with your name. And if you go on YouTube and you do a search for all kinds of TEDx speakers or any kind of public speakers, any kind of speech, you will notice that they never ever start with their name. They do maybe a 30-second, 45-second introduction in a different way, and only then they give their name, okay? So this is my top tip number 8. And then we move on to another top tip. And what do we have here? And as it's coming up on your screens, I'm going to tell you a little story here. And this is a real life story. A real life story about jam. Oh yes, this is a real life story about jam. This story takes place in Stanford in America. And Stanford has lots of colleges, especially the University of Stanford. Next to the university, there used to be a grocery store. And a student from Stanford University, she was studying there, she went to the grocery store and she found, like all American grocery stores, a department store, there were lots and lots of products. And interestingly, she found that particularly in that store, there were 24 different kinds of jam. And she started to wonder, oh my God, 24 different kinds of jam. Now, how do people decide which jam to buy? And she started to wonder, and she was a student of social psychology. So she went to the store manager along with a couple of her classmates. And she said, so we want to do a project. And we want to do a little experiment as part of the project as to how people are buying in your store. And hopefully the outcome of our experiment will actually improve the number of people who buy things in your store. And the manager said, that's fine. So what this girl did along with 2 of her classmates is she took 5 kinds of jam and she set up a table outside the store. Inside the store, there were still 24 different kinds of jam. Outside the store, here are 3 students sitting with 5 different kinds of jam. As customers are walking in or walking out, they see this table and the students call them over and say, would you like a taste of one of these jams? And most people would taste and then they would say, okay, yeah, I would like this one, right? So what they realized through their project is that when there are only limited choices, when there's only 5 things to choose from, people find it much easier to choose than when there is a huge choice. And by applying this methodology, they were able to figure out that if the store reduced the number of jams that they carried to just about 8 or 9, they would increase the sales by 40%. That's a huge amount, 40%. And that's what the store did. But in terms of public speaking, what does it mean? Well, it means that our human brains can't really comprehend a whole lot. And a mistake that many people make when they go into public speaking, when they're going to make a speech, is that they tend to say too much. They have too much. For a 20-minute presentation, they have too much. For a 1-hour presentation, they have too much. One, they run out of time, which is never a good thing to do. And the second thing is that beyond a point, their audience, their listeners, is not able to comprehend what they're going to say, or they're not going to remember what they're going to say at the end of the presentation, right? And so this is top tip number 7. Don't say too much. Apply the rule of 3. Now, the rule of 3 is a scientifically proven rule, and this has been proven across many researches which have been done, that most people can only remember things at the tune of 3, count of 3, right? Multiples of 3 rather, okay? So if you have a speech to give, or a debate, or a presentation, or a book report, whatever it is that your public speaking opportunity is, have 3 main messages. Just 3 main messages, not more than that, not more than that. If you have more than 3 main messages, your audience is not going to remember. Now, today what's going to happen, even though I share with you 10 top tips, what's going to happen at the end of the presentation, you'll see, is that you will probably only remember 3 of those. So think about this for a second. 3 things is what you should all focus on, never more than 3. Don't try to do too much in any presentation because it's not going to work. Your audience is not going to relate to it. They won't remember it. So keep it short, keep it simple. Don't say too much. That's the rule of 3. That was top tip number 7. We still have quite a lot to go, but here's a little poem for you. Have a look at it. Read it. Take a few seconds. Read this poem. And I am going to advance the slide right after you read the poem and ask you, do you actually remember the poem? And I guarantee you, if you were all here with me today, you would say, no, I don't remember this poem. And that's absolutely fine because the poem had 8 lines and you can't really remember the poem, right? Don't try to memorize your speech or your debate or whatever it is that you're talking about to people as well. My top tip number 6 is that the top presenters of the world cheat. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean that they're bad people. I don't mean that they're cheating in the bad sense of the word. But what I mean by they cheat is that they always have some notes with them, right? Now, I am never going to say that you should have your notes from a diary and just read out because that's very uninteresting if you're reading out from here. Don't do that. But when I say by cheat, it means that you have some clues with you. What is it that I'm going to talk about? Don't try to memorize your speech. Just have some clues. And my top tip here is that have the 3 or 4, 5, 6 things that you need to remember written on a piece of paper, but written with really big font. So if you can type it up, make it really big font and print it out, that's wonderful. The good thing about the big font is that you can see it really clearly. So if you have a desk in front of you or a lectern when you're making a speech, you can leave it there. You just need to glance, like a small little glance. I don't know if you can see my eyes at this distance. Little quick glance and it's a big font, just jumps out at you. If you write it in very small font, you're going to have to go like this and see, and then people know that you're referring to your notes, and that's not nice. That's not nice at all, okay? So this is tip number 6, cheat, which means have your notes in front of you, have your notes in big font in front of you. Never ever try to memorize your presentation. That's not going to work because how many times have you tried to memorize and gone there and found that you start to speak and you forget what you have to say, right? Don't ever memorize. Hey there, Krish. Good evening to you. Good to see you here. Keep on writing in your questions, your comments in the chat box. And that way I know that I can give you some answers to the main questions you have about public speaking. So we've already covered tip number 8, 10, 9, 8, 7 and 6. 5 tips done. Just about halfway in, aren't we? Just about halfway in our time as well. So just about halfway in, we still have 5 more tips to go. And here we go. But before that, let me just quickly recap for you. What were the top 5 tips so far? The first one was, it doesn't really matter what you have to say as much as how you say it. And that's really, really important. How I'm saying. So your body language, your engagement, your smile, your eye movement, your movement around the stage, all of that is really, really very important. Okay. Then we had another tip, and that tip was, if you were here and you've been listening so far, you know that tip was, never ever start your presentation in a boring way by telling people this is what I'm going to do. So you have to grab people's attention, and you grab people's attention by using a hook. And a hook is something that is interesting for the audience. It could be a story, it could be a joke, it could be a provocative statement, something like that. That's a hook. Tip number 3, don't start your presentation in a generic and boring way. Don't say, my name is Aksha. I can see Aksha here. Hi, good evening, Aksha. So Aksha, tip for you here in case you've just joined. Never ever say, hi, my name is Aksha and I'm studying in class 10 or class whatever in this school. First, you start your introduction by saying something different, connecting with the audience, asking a question of the audience. How many of you are in class 10 here? Oh, I'm also in class 10. Hey there, my name is Aksha, right? That was another tip for you right there. Another tip that I just talked about is, don't try to memorize things, but try to always have a little cheat sheet in big letters. These are some of the top tips that we've been talking about. And the 5th top tip that we've talked about is, don't say too much. Use the rule of 3. In every presentation, only have 3 main points, because more than that is very difficult for people to comprehend, to understand, or to remember. That's it so far. 5 tips so far. We have 5 more tips to go. Here is something that I've put up on the screen for you. And welcome to all of you who are watching. In case you're watching live, that's wonderful. In case you're watching it later on, that's great as well. Have a look at my slide right there. Try to understand what I'm trying to say in this slide. And I bet it's a bit confusing. I bet it's a bit confusing. Have a look at what I'm saying. Hi there, Kirtana. Good to see you back. Okay, have a look at the slide. Can you make out what I'm trying to say in the slide? Can you write in the chat box? Can you make out what am I trying to actually say here? It's a big sentence. And it's fine if you say, no, I can't make out. Because the sentence is intentionally written like that. Huge words, big words. Most of these words you don't even know what they mean, right? This is my top tip number 5. Moving on. Yes, I know. I'm going to explain it. This actually means it's going to rain. That's it. That's all that it means. It's going to rain. It's a weather forecast. Meteorological forecast. Oh my God. Preponderance, moisture, Too much. A mistake that a lot of people try to make when they are going in for public speaking, they think, if I use big words, I'm going to really impress my audience. That is not true. Use simple words. Using jargon, using big words to show off how smart you are, that's not going to work. One is, you yourself might stumble and forget about those big words. And the second thing is that your audience might be like, oh God, does she think we're stupid? Is she trying to prove that she's smarter than us? That's not a good thing as well. Keep it really, really simple. This is tip number 5. Never assume that you need to use big words to show how smart you are or to make an impact in your presentation. If you notice the way that I speak, and whenever I'm speaking to you in class, for me, these are all public speaking opportunities, aren't they? I always use words that you can understand, and I don't try to prove that I'm smarter than you by using big words. KISS. Remember this. Tip number 5 is KISS. Not in the physical sense of the word, but in terms of an abbreviation. Keep it simple, stupid. Well, the stupid is just to make you remember the acronym, but it's just keep it simple. That's it. Keep it simple. Okay. The top tip number 4, very related. This is also a verbal tip. is lose something. You need to lose one thing that a lot of people make a mistake with. They use a lot of filler words. What do filler words mean? And just trying to think of an example. I'm just trying to think of an example. Did you see what I did there? Are you seeing what I'm doing there? I'm actually using a filler word to show you what a filler word is. Most of us, when we speak, whether we are speaking in a public speaking forum or we are speaking with other people, we use a lot of filler words. These filler words would be like right, okay, is that so I'm just going to say this, right? Do you agree, da 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 da, right? A lot of people use right. Okay. Many people start their sentences with the word so. So I wanted to talk to you about this, and so I was thinking that maybe we could go for a movie sometime. So I started to read this book. So is a word that is so misused. Yes, and I am so conscious of this because I talk about it a lot. Don't use the word so. Try to think of a situation, try to think about your speech patterns, and you will notice and become aware of this from now on. How many times do you start your sentence with the word so? So don't do it. Now, the way I did it just now, when I say so don't do it, that was a wrong usage. I should just have said don't do it. Lose the filler words. Lose the ums, the ahs, the so's, you know, yeah, or a lot of youngsters like you use the word like I was like wondering like what is she really thinking, like what was going through her mind, like is she crazy, like why does she think that she could get away with this? A lot of use of the word like. These are all filler words. When you use filler word, what happens is that your audience thinks that you're not confident and you give the impression of somebody who's not completely thorough with their material, who's not very comfortable, who's not very confident, and they have to use the filler words to give them some pause to think. If you need to think, just pause. Do not use a filler word. Filler words examples are like, okay, so. All of these are filler words, and if you can have a look, you identify for yourself which ones of these are filler words. Try to become really aware of it. If you can't become aware of it yourself, next time you're with a friend, ask them to observe you and say, hey dude, will you just make a note of the number of times I say like or the number of times I say so that I can stop doing it? Do that with your friend. Ask your friend to give you some feedback on the filler words that you're using, or your parents or your brother or sister, whoever it is, right? So that was another top tip for all of you who are here or who are listening to me on YouTube. Okay. Tip number 3, a little bit of magic. We're almost done, by the way. We have tip number 3 to 1, and we'll be done with the top tips. Tip number 3, magic. Think about magic, because I'm going to give you an absolutely magical tip right now, which is about the magic phrase that all top presenters use. All the professional speakers use the magic phrase. Take a minute and think about what could be that magic phrase. Take a few seconds, okay? If you're wondering, what is it? Well, it's not abracadabra. It's not any of this. It's not open sesame. It's not any of those typical magic phrases. The magic phrase that I'm talking about is very simple. The magic phrase is, for example. That's it. For example. This is such a powerful phrase. For example. The moment you say, for example, everybody in your audience starts to listen to you because they know you're going to give them an example. You're going to relate it. You're going to tell them something interesting. It could be a story. For example. For example. I gave you the example of the jam jar. For example, if you had to talk about the coronavirus epidemic and its impact on students, you need to, how would you introduce yourself? You're immediately thinking. So, for example, has got you thinking. So you move beyond the theory, you move beyond the concepts, and your audience is already thinking and they're relating to you much, much more. Give lots of examples. Anytime you do your presentation, anytime you speak in public, people love examples. Rather than saying, and here I'm going to use the magic phrase and say, for example, rather than saying or giving statistics like 59% of all the trees did you know that 59% of all the trees are being cut down? You say, for example, if you look around your neighborhood, you will find that the trees that were there 10 years ago are not there anymore. Immediately your audience has got a picture and they're listening to you rather than just giving them a dry number. Use the magic phrase, for example. That's another top tip here. Tip number 3. Tip number 2, and now we are coming to the end of it. Just 2 tips left from the top tips of the most successful presenters. Tip number 2, old is gold. Old is gold. And what that means simply is that most top presenters never ever do a public speaking opportunity where everything that they're saying is new, or everything that they're wearing is new, or everything is new. For example, and here I go using the magic phrase once again. For example, I would never use a new headphone if I have a class. Because my new headphone, something could happen. Maybe there would be a problem with it. I would never use it. I would use a headphone which I've already tried multiple times and I know it works. Because I don't want to take a risk with my class. I don't want my listeners to not be able to hear me, or for me not to be able to hear the people who are talking to me. This is an example of using something that's familiar to you. That's all that gives you some comfort. If I'm going to make a presentation and somebody says, will you be able to talk about the physics, the laws of physics? Well, I can't do that. That's not my area of expertise. And I'll say, no, but they say, but public speaking, you can speak in public, and maybe you can talk about how physics teachers need to be speaking in public. And I'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do that because this is not something that I know about. Talk about something that you know about. So whenever you're going to talk to a debate or a group presentation or a speech or whatever it is, try to find something that you're familiar with and talk about it. Doesn't mean that you talk about the same topics every single time, but in case you want to get familiar with a new topic, it simply means practice, practice, and practice till the new topic becomes an old topic and you get comfortable with it as well. There's another application of the old is gold rule. Don't ever wear something which is completely new on stage. If you're going to go on stage, don't wear a new pair of shoes. I always tell this to people, always wear a comfortable pair of shoes. Because with a new pair of shoes, you don't know what's going to happen. It could make a noise, or it could really hurt your foot. You might fall down. You don't know what's going to happen. Don't wear a completely new shirt. You don't know how that shirt is going to look in front of an audience. If the lights are switched on, how it's going to look. When you sweat, you perspire, what's going to happen to that shirt? You don't know. So don't use this, because public speaking, most of us are very nervous already about facing an audience. Why add to that nervousness by trying to speak about something which is completely unfamiliar, or by wearing something which is completely unfamiliar, or using a tool like a headphone or a mobile device or something which is completely unfamiliar? If I am comfortable having my notes on paper and pencil like this, I would rather use that, even though my friend says, hey, you know what, I use my mobile phone to have all my notes in one place. Okay, that's good for you, but I haven't tried it. Unless I try it out in my practice session, I'm not going to use it in my actual public speaking session. That's tip number 2. We've covered 9 tips so far, and I hope you've enjoyed it and you've learned a lot. All the 9 tips. Remember, these are not tips that you can get in this form anywhere else. These are all the tips that I use and I find particularly useful, and hence this is what I wanted to share with all of you. Coming down to the last bit. Yes, we're almost there. The last and most important tip number 1. Now look at this statement. Top public speakers know that public speaking is not about speaking. And you're wondering, oh my God, that sounds very surprising. She's been talking about speaking all this while, and now she says it's not about speaking. Think about that for a second. Why am I saying that public speaking is not about speaking? Let it get inside your head. Think about it. What else is involved in public speaking? What else is involved in public speaking? And as you think about it, you will come to realize, and I hope you do, because this is the most important lesson that I could ever teach you, that most successful presenters will teach you, is that public speaking is not about you. Your speech is not about you. The points you make in your debate, not about you. It's all about the audience. It's all about the audience. when you focus too much on yourself, when you focus on how am I speaking, what am I saying, you lose an opportunity to connect with your audience. And at the end of the day, the best speakers are those that connected with their audience. That's right, you share your experience and perspective, but you make sure that it's useful for your audience. So, for example, the examples that I've been using all of today, because I know all of your students, I'm using examples from student life. I'm talking about debates in college, in school. I'm talking about presentations in class. I'm using these kind of examples. But if I'm talking to a group of adults, I need to use different kind of examples, which they will be able to relate to. So I'm thinking more about my audience rather than about myself. So don't focus so much on yourself that you completely lose your audience. You need to know what works for your audience. If you are preparing a speech on pollution, or you're preparing a speech on for the mock UN, for example, I know a lot of you would want to be lawyers and you participate in mock UNs, or you want to be, you're preparing a speech on whether, or a debate on whether students should go back to school right now, even though the coronavirus pandemic is still going on. Don't just worry about your points, but try to think, who's my audience? Am I going to be speaking to a bunch of my classmates? Am I going to be speaking to teachers? Is it going to be a combination of teachers and classmates? Is it going to be people from other schools who don't know me? Think about your audience. And when you think about your audience, what will happen is you will then start to modify your speech. And even though it's your experience and your perspective, you will present it in a way that your audience can relate to. And in order to do that, rather than only speaking, you also have to listen to your audience. How do you listen to your audience? You can ask them questions, you can, interact with them, but more importantly, you can read their body language, which means as you're speaking, you don't just focus on yourself, but you're constantly looking at your audience. If you see they're getting restless, they're looking bored, they're starting to fiddle with their phones, you know that you need to do something. Maybe this is the time for a joke, or maybe this is the time you speak faster. Maybe you are standing in one place, you need to start moving around the stage so people look up because they sense the movement. You need to grab their attention again, right? Or you notice that the audience is starting to look a little bit worried because you've been talking about a subject which is very serious. Again, you modify and you say, oh, okay, this is a time for a good story. And this kind of breaks up the tension a little bit as well. So rather than focusing on yourself and your speaking, focus on your audience. As you're preparing, focus on your audience. What is it that my audience would like to hear from me? That's how you prepare. When you think of your examples, think about what kind of examples would my audience like from me. Give those kind of examples. As you're speaking, continuously be looking at your audience and seeing how are they reacting, and modify your presentation, your speaking, so that you can adapt to them. And the fourth thing is, if you notice that something is going wrong, then quickly change it. So have a lot of things prepared for yourself in your head, which you can use. And the last one that I wanted to say is you can ask questions, interact with your audience. In fact, sometimes what happens is you lose your train of thought. You prepared something, you forgot, suddenly in the middle, you just blank out. That's a good opportunity again to connect with your audience and say, hey, let me just ask you guys, whatever I've said so far, did that make sense? Can somebody recap for me? Do you guys want to just tell me what are the top 2 things you learned from this? And this is how you again get the connection going with the audience. Plus also it gives you a little bit of time to calm down, recollect your points, and then go ahead and connect back with them again. So these were my top 10 tips. If you have any questions or any comments, keep writing them in. I hope you enjoyed it. There is a whole lot that you can learn from An Academy, especially from Creative Corner. And here we go. Let me just talk about Creative Corner a little bit. It's really wonderful. So many different kinds of courses just beyond your school. So in school, we do all our physics and chemistry, maths, biology, we do all of these kind of things. But Creative Corner is where you can explore other kinds of subjects. Storytelling, Vedic maths, robotics, coding, communication, debating, magic tricks, learning how to doodle. Isn't that great? And there is a whole lot of things that you can do. If you use my code, and my code is, I'm just going to put that in the chat box right here for all of you who are interested. If you put in my code, you will get 10% discount for your subscription to Creative Corner. And let me just check that my code Absolutely correct. Before I put that up there, while you're having a look at all the opportunities which are there in Creative Corner, and here's my code. And if you use this, you are going to get a 10% discount. There we go. I think it's lost. I'm putting it again. There we go. It's in the chat box. You'll get a 10% discount in Creative Corner. And refer your friends as well. I would love to hear from you guys. Anytime I do a session, what I really want is for all of you to record a small video. Doesn't need to be really big. Can be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. That's about it. 4-5 minutes. And you see some of the videos that we have featured at the bottom of the screen. Upload your videos. So for example, for today, your video, your assignment will be, what did I learn about public speaking? My top 3 tips, just 3 tips about public speaking from all the 10 tips that I shared with you. Make some creative videos, put in a little bit of jazz there, some oomph there, put it in, and then your video, if it's really good, will get featured in the YouTube channel of Unacademy, Creative Corner by Unacademy, as the star creator. I would love to see that. Upload it on the links which are given to you. Here's the link right there as you can see that there. You can take it from there. Upload your, this is also, sorry, for the Telegram group on the top, and the link to submit the videos at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and please send us your videos. We would love to see and hear from you as to what you learned, and we'll feature you as well. Join the Telegram group to get all your questions answered and to keep in touch. That's it. Just about to say that there is a January Carnival on every day 4 to 5 p.m. and 5 to 6 p.m. Lots and lots of sessions coming up on the Unacademy Learning app, not on YouTube. This January Carnival is on the Unacademy Learning app. Join us as well. Lots of sessions. We'd love to see you there. And I'm doing some sessions on personal excellence, how to make the best of yourself in the January Carnival. And I hope to see everybody there. So that's it from my side. I hope you had a fantastic time today. You enjoyed yourselves. There is lots of opportunities for you to engage with Unacademy. Here's another one, Revisathon 2.0, free 5-day revision marathon curated especially for learners of class 9 to 12. So many different things which are happening on Unacademy. Very exciting platform. I hope you will all use these opportunities. Submit your videos. Whatever you like, a creative introduction of yourself or the top things that you learned, that would all be wonderful for me to see from you. Here we go. That's it from me for today. If there are any questions, please let me know. I'm going to stay on for just a minute more. And after that, I'm going to say bye-bye. And thank you, Aksha, for that lovely comment there. I always try to make the sessions interesting for you and something that's absolutely helpful, fruitful, and practical as well as enjoyable. So I hope you found this session to be enjoyable and practical. I'll see you next time on YouTube sometime with lots of different kinds of life skills programs and sessions. Join me here and keep coming back. See you soon. And if there are any questions, please keep putting them in. And if you can't put in if you're not watching live, so you can't send me questions, you can always reach me on the Unacademy app by just dropping me a message. And I'd love to connect with you. Any questions on communication, public speaking, all of those are very, very welcome. So please drop this in as I end the class today. See you soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye, everybody.